My father was dying, and every time the door creaked, his eyes would fly to it, hoping for the one person who never came. For 3 years, my brother Chidi had not set foot in this house, not for Mama's burial, not for Papa's first stroke, not for a single Christmas. And as I sat by our father's bed, holding a hand that had grown as light as a dry leaf, watching him wait for a son who would not come, I hated my brother with everything in me. I thought Chidi was the most ungrateful man alive. I was wrong. I was so wrong that, to this day, I cannot tell this story without weeping. Let me tell you what those last nights were like, so you understand the anger I carried. Papa could barely lift his head, but every evening, when the sun went down and the crickets started, he would turn his face toward the doorway and go very still, listening. Listening for a car, for footsteps, for a voice he had not heard in years. In that flickering lamplight, I watched my father's hope rise and die, 100 times a night. And every time it died, a little more of him went with it. "Has he called?" Papa would whisper every evening. "Has Chidi called?" And every evening I would lie and say, "Soon, Papa. He is busy. He will come soon." Because the truth, that my brother had not called in years, would have broken what little was left of my father's heart. Papa never spoke a bad word about Chidi, not once. Even as the whole village called his son a disgrace, a boy who abandoned his dying father, Papa would only say, "You do not know my son. There is a reason." I thought it was the blind love of a dying man. It was not. Papa knew something none of us did. I called Chidi that night, the way I had called 100 times. It rang and rang in the dark, and when he finally answered, his voice sounded far away and tired in a way I did not understand then. "Papa is dying, Chidi," I said, and I did not hide my anger. "He is asking for you. After everything he did for you, this is how you repay him? You cannot even come to watch your own father die?" There was a long silence on the line, and then my brother said, very quietly, "I am sorry, Neka. I cannot come. Please, tell him I love him." And he hung up. I threw my phone into the dirt. I did not know that on the other end of that line, my brother was standing in the cold, thousands of miles away, weeping harder than I was. I want you to hold on to that image, because I did not understand it for years. A grown man, alone in a foreign country, sliding down a wall with a dead phone in his hand, sobbing for a father he was forbidding himself to go and see. At the time, all I felt was rage. I went back into Papa's room and I sat down, and when Papa's eyes asked me the question his mouth was too weak to form, I lied to him again. "Chidi sends his love, Papa," I whispered. "He is coming as soon as he can." And my dying father smiled, as if I had handed him water in a desert. That smile has haunted me every day since. To understand my brother, you have to understand who he was, before. Chidi was the golden child, the first son, brilliant, kind, the one Papa poured all his hopes into. He would carry the smallest child in the village on his shoulders. He once gave his own shoes to a boy who had none and walked home barefoot, smiling. Papa sold 2 plots of good land to send him to university in the city. "This boy," Papa used to say, gripping Chidi's shoulder in front of everyone, "this boy will lift this whole family." And Chidi believed it too. He was going to build something. He was going to make Papa proud. And then, one year, something happened that sent my brother away in disgrace. And none of us, not even me, ever knew the truth of it. We only knew the shame. What I am about to tell you, I only pieced together after it was too late. After the funeral. After the day a stranger knocked on our door and handed me a box that shattered everything I thought I knew about my brother. So let me take you back to the day Chidi left, the day I have spent my whole life misunderstanding, because the brother I called ungrateful had been carrying this family on his back the entire time, in silence, from the shadows, paying a price I cannot describe for a love I did not deserve. The day my brother walked out of this village, he was 28, and he was carrying one bag and a shame that was not even his. He did not look back. And behind him, on the veranda, our father stood watching his golden son disappear down that red dirt road and did not stop him. I always thought Papa let him go out of anger. Now I know. Papa let him go because Papa knew exactly what my brother was sacrificing and why, and it was the hardest thing either of them ever did. This is the story of the son who never came home, and why. It began with a debt. Our father had a small but respected business. He supplied grain across 3 districts, and a partner he trusted like a brother, a man he had known since they were boys. That partner betrayed him. He took loans in the company's name, forged Papa's signature, gambled it all on a scheme that collapsed, and vanished in the night, leaving Papa holding a debt so large it would have swallowed everything. The house, the land, the grain store, and worse than the money, Papa's name. In our village, a man's name is everything. If it came out that Okonkwo's business had died in fraud, my father would have died of the shame long before the debt ever killed him. I did not know any of this at the time. I was young. All I saw was that, suddenly, men in stiff shirts were coming to our house with papers, and Mama was crying in the back room, and Papa had aged 10 years in a single month. I saw my father, the strongest man I knew, a man who had never bowed his head to anyone, sitting alone in the dark, staring at nothing. And then, Chidi came home from the city, and my brother did something that changed all our lives forever. My brother went before the elders, and the bank, and the whole gathered village, and he took all of it, onto himself. He stood in the center of the compound, and he said the debt was his, that he had made the reckless deals, that he had gambled the company, that he had forged the papers and brought this ruin down on his father's head. It was a lie. Every word of it was a lie. Chidi had done nothing wrong. But he stood there in front of everyone he had ever known, and he let the whole village believe that Okonkwo's golden son had become a fraud and a gambler, so that not one single drop of the shame would ever touch our father's name. Papa begged him, in private, not to do it. I learned this only years later from the letters. Papa took his son's face in both hands that night, and he said, "I would rather lose everything than let you destroy your own name for mine." And Chidi, 28 years old, with his whole brilliant future ahead of him, said, "Papa, your name kept this family alive for 40 years. Let mine carry this. I am young. I can build a new name from nothing. You cannot. And I will not watch you die of shame for something a wicked man did to you." That was the moment my brother chose, and he never took it back. And so, the story the village told was simple. The reckless first son ruined his father and ran away in shame. That was the Chidi I grew up believing in. The disgrace, the one who broke Papa's heart and left us to clean up his mess. For years, I told that story at every family gathering, my voice full of righteous anger. I told it to my husband. I told it to my children. I told it to anyone who would listen, and I felt proud of my own loyalty while I did. And I never once wondered why our father, who was so strict he would beat us for a single small lie, never, ever said one word against the son who had supposedly destroyed him. I was too busy being angry to notice that Papa's eyes, whenever Chidi's name was spoken, were not the eyes of a betrayed man. They were the eyes of a man carrying a secret that was breaking him in half. I saw it 100 times. I called it grief. It was something much heavier than grief. It was pride and guilt, and a love so large he could not put it down. But I am getting ahead of myself, because taking the blame was only the beginning of what my brother did. Leaving in shame was only the first payment on a debt he would spend the rest of his life quietly, invisibly paying. You see, everyone thought Chidi ran away to escape the debt. The truth is the exact opposite. He left so that he could pay it. Every last naira, where no one could see, so that no one would ever know the truth, so that Papa's name, and even Chidi's lie, would stand forever. And he did something else too, something I did not discover until the box arrived. My brilliant brother, the one Papa sold land to educate, the one meant to lift us all, spent the next 20 years doing the hardest, lowest, coldest work a man can do, He went to a country far in the north, where the winters bite like an animal and where no one knew his name or cared. And there, the golden boy who was going to build an empire cleaned office floors through the night and carried bricks and cement through the day. 2 jobs, sometimes 3. He scrubbed toilets in buildings full of people who never once looked him in the eye. Let me tell you how he lived, because he wrote it all down, and reading it broke me. He rented a single freezing room at the top of 4 flights of stairs. There was one small window that never fully closed, so in winter, the snow would gather on the sill inside. He slept under his coat. He ate the cheapest food he could find, bread and rice and whatever the market threw out at the end of the day. He owned nothing, no comfort, no friends, because friends ask questions, and he could not afford to answer them. For 20 years, my brother chose to be cold and hungry and alone so that we could be warm. He wrote about one night, his 3rd winter away, when it all nearly ended. He had worked 18 hours across 2 jobs, his fever was climbing, and on the walk home through the snow, he simply sat down against a wall and could not make himself get up again. He thought, very calmly, that it would be easy to stay there, to close his eyes and let the cold lift the weight off his shoulders forever. And then he thought of Papa's face at the dinner table, and of me in my school uniform, and he pictured the letter that would arrive if he stopped, the one that said the payment did not come this month. So he got up. He always got up. "I cannot be tired," he wrote that night. "If I am tired, the roof leaks. If I am tired, Papa's name falls. So I am not tired." And then he had written those same 4 words, "I am not tired," over and over, down the whole rest of the page, like a man trying to convince his own breaking body to keep going one more day. And every single month, without fail, money left his ruined hands and traveled home, to pay down the debt and to keep our family fed. There were months, he wrote, when he did not eat properly for days because he had sent home more than he could spare. There was one winter he worked through a fever so high he could barely stand, because if he missed work, he missed the payment. And if he missed the payment, the debt would grow, and Papa's name would be 1 month closer to ruin. We never knew where the money came from. We thought Papa had savings we did not know about. Papa let us think so. It was the only lie my honest father ever told, and he told it to protect his son. The money that paid for my school fees. The money that fixed our roof when the rains came through it. The money that bought Mama her medicine before she passed. And later, the money that paid for Papa's every treatment, his stroke care, his hospital bed, his drugs, the specialist in the city. It all came from Chidi. Every naira. He sent it anonymously, through a lawyer, under a false name, routed so carefully that we could never trace it back to him. Because he knew that if we knew, we would feel the debt. And he did not want us to carry even the smallest corner of what he had chosen to carry alone. Papa was the only one who knew. And Papa kept that secret all the way to his grave, because Chidi had begged him to. "Let them think what they think of me, Papa," he had written. "Just let them be safe. Let Neka finish school believing it was you. Let her marry proud. That is all I want. Do not let my sacrifice become her burden." And so my father, who wanted more than anything to stand up and tell the world the truth about his magnificent son, swallowed that truth for 20 years to honor the boy's wish. 2 men, 1 lie. A whole family kept safe and never knowing the cost. I graduated because of my brother. I married in a fine white dress because of my brother. The comfortable life I lived, the life from which I looked down and cursed his name at every family meeting. He built it, brick by brick, with hands that cracked and bled in a country whose language he barely spoke. And I repaid him by telling my own children that their uncle was a criminal and a disgrace, a man they should be ashamed to share blood with. God forgive me. Every good thing in my life was a gift from the man I hated most in the world. And I did not know. I did not know because he made certain I never would. So why did he never come home? Even at the end? Even when Papa was dying and calling his name into the dark? I asked myself that with fury for years. Now I understand, and the understanding is its own kind of grief. If Chidi came home, the village would see him, and a man cannot keep paying a secret debt from the shadows once he steps back into the light. Worse, if he came home looking successful, people would ask how, and the questions would pull at the lie until it unraveled, and Papa's name might finally be stained after everything. And if he came home broken, as he truly was, thin, gray, aged 30 years and 20, his hands ruined, he could not bear for our proud father to see what the sacrifice had cost his golden boy. So he stayed away, and he let us hate him. Because his love was bigger than his need to be understood, or thanked, or even forgiven. In Papa's last days, he tried, I think, to tell me. He did not have the strength for the whole truth, but he reached for it. Once, near the end, he gripped my hand with a sudden, fierce strength and pulled me close. "Neka," he said, "when I am gone, do not judge your brother. He gave more than any of you will ever know. Promise me you will not let them speak against him at my grave." I promised to calm him, but I did not believe him. I thought grief and medicine had made an old man sentimental, that he was protecting a memory of the son who no longer existed. I nodded, and I squeezed his hand, and inside I thought, "Even now, Papa, even now you defend him. He does not deserve you." 2 days later, my father died. He died at dusk, with his face turned toward the door, still waiting, still listening for a son who could not come. His last breath went out of him like a sigh of disappointment, and I have never forgiven myself for the lie I told to ease it. "He is almost here, Papa. Chidi is almost here." My father left this world believing his golden son had abandoned him, and I let him. I did not know I was the one who did not understand. I did not know that the truth was already traveling toward me, in a box, in the hands of a stranger. At the funeral, the whole village came, and behind their mourning faces, they muttered the same thing they had muttered for 20 years. The ungrateful first son. He did not even come to bury his own father. What kind of man does that? And the seat where the first son should have sat, right at the front, beside the grave, stayed empty the entire day. I stared at that empty chair, and I let its emptiness harden my heart into a stone. At the graveside, I made a decision I am ashamed of to this day. I decided that I would never speak my brother's name again. As far as I was concerned, I told myself, I no longer had a brother. I did not know that, at that exact hour, an ocean away, in a freezing city, my brother had knelt on the bare floor of his tiny room in a borrowed black shirt and held his own small, secret funeral for the father he was forbidden to bury. He lit a single candle. He read aloud, to no one, the names of every man in our family going back 4 generations, the way a first son must at his father's burial. And then he pressed his forehead to the cold floorboards, and he wept, alone, for the father he had loved enough to let die thinking the worst of him. I know this because he wrote it down that same night. I have read those pages so many times the ink has worn soft. On one of those pages, he had written a single line, larger than all the rest, pressed so hard the pen had almost torn through the paper. Today I buried my father, and no one will ever know that I was his son. 20 years of silence, and it was that one sentence that finally showed me the true size of what my brother had given. Not the money, not the broken body, but this. He let his own father go down into the ground, believing the very worst of him. And then he grieved that loss completely alone, on a cold floor, an ocean away, because to tell the truth, even then, would have undone the gift he had spent his whole life giving. There is no harder thing a loving heart can be asked to do. And no one asked him. He simply did it, and made sure we would never know. 3 weeks after the funeral, a man I had never seen knocked on my door. He was older, gray at the temples, travel-worn, and he held a battered wooden box in both hands, as if it were made of glass and might shatter if he breathed wrong. "Are you Neka?" he asked. "Daughter of Okonkwo?" I said I was. He told me his name did not matter. He said only that he had made a promise to a man he respected more than any man he had ever known, and that he had crossed a great distance to keep it. Then he placed the box gently in my hands and said the words that began to break me. "Your brother asked me to give you this," he said, "only after your father was gone." I did not want to open it. I stood in my doorway holding that box like it was something dangerous, because it was. Whatever was inside was from Chidi, and I had built my entire life, my whole idea of myself, on hating him. To open that box was to risk everything I believed. But something in the old man's tired, kind eyes made me sit down at my kitchen table and, with hands I could not keep still, lift the lid. Inside was not money, not gold, not treasure. It was paper. Years and years and years of paper. And the moment I understood what I was looking at, the room began, very slowly, to spin. Bank transfer records, hundreds of them, receipts, hospital bills stamped in red, paid, paid, paid. School fee slips with my own name on them, a record of our roof repair, Mama's medicine. Every single payment our family had received for 20 years, all the money I had believed was Papa's secret savings, was there, in black and white, sent from a foreign account, under a name I did not recognize, in my brother's careful handwriting. My school fees, our roof, and then, at the bottom, the ones that stopped my heart. Papa's medical bills, every hospital stay, every treatment, every drug, every single one, paid by the brother I had cursed at that very man's deathbed. I put my hand over my mouth. I could not breathe. The man I had called ungrateful had paid for the very bed I sat beside while I whispered curses against his name. He had paid for the medicine that eased my father's pain in the exact hours I was on the phone screaming at him for not caring. Every comfort of my father's dying, the good doctor, the private room, the drugs that let him sleep, was a gift from the son we all believed had abandoned him. And I had not even reached the letters yet. Beneath all the receipts, tied with a fraying string, was a thick bundle of envelopes, dozens of them, addressed to Papa, and never sent. I read the letters. Oh, God! I read every one of them, there at my kitchen table, as the light went and I did not get up to turn on a lamp. In them, my brother poured out everything he could never say out loud. "Papa," one began, "I got extra work this month, cleaning a second building at night, so I have sent a little more. Please, buy yourself the good medicine, not the cheap one. Do not argue with me. I have already decided." Another. "Papa, a man showed me a photo of Neka's wedding today. She looked so beautiful. Tell her nothing. Let her believe the dress and the feast were your gift to her. It should feel like it came from her father. That is how it should be." And then there was the one that destroyed me completely. "Papa," it read, "I am so tired tonight. My hands do not close all the way anymore, and the cold has gotten into my chest. But when I am tired, I remember that your name is still clean, and Neka is safe, and the children are in school, and I find the strength to lift the next block. Thank you, Papa, for letting me carry this. It is the only truly good thing I have ever done with my life. Do not tell them. Promise me again that you will not tell them. Let me love them from here, where it does not cost them anything." I read that, and I laid my head down on that table full of my brother's sacrifice, and I wept until there was nothing left in me. There were letters for every season of our lives. "Papa, is Neka still afraid of thunder? Buy her a good radio so there is music in the house when the storms come, and tell her it is from you. Papa, I heard the second grandchild is walking now. I will never see it walk. Kiss the baby's head for me, and do not say why." He knew every small thing about our lives, this man we all believed had forgotten us. He had memorized us from a distance, loved us through a wall of his own making, and asked for nothing in return but that we never find out. I sat there in the dark, and I finally understood. My brother had never left us at all. He had only stepped back into the shadow so that we could go on standing in the light. There was one more letter, newer than the rest, and it was not to Papa. It was to me. "Neka," it said. "If you are reading this, then Papa is gone, and the old man has kept his promise and brought you the box. I am sorry for the phone calls. I am sorry for the silence. I know you hate me, and I never once blamed you because I built that hatred on purpose, to keep you free. You were never a burden to me. You are the reason. Every block I lifted for you. Please do not be angry at Papa for keeping my secret, and please, do not come looking for me. I am not the brother you remember. I am old and broken, and I do not want that to be how you finally see me. Just know that you were loved, all along, more than you will ever know. Your brother, Chidi. Do not come looking for me." I read that line, and something in me that had been asleep for 20 years stood up. I looked at that pile of paper, 20 years of a man erasing himself so that I could live, and I made a new decision, the opposite of the one I made at the graveside. I decided that I would find my brother if it was the last thing I ever did, that he would not spend one more night believing he had to be alone, that the one thing he had asked for, to never be seen, was the one thing I would refuse him. Because for once in my selfish life, I was going to give him what he needed, whether he wanted it or not. The old man had left an address on a slip of paper inside the box, in case. It took me almost everything I had to make that journey. The flights, the strange cold airports, a language I did not speak. But 3 days later, I stood in a gray city in the far north, shivering in a coat that was not warm enough, staring up at a narrow, crumbling building with 4 floors. This was where my brilliant brother lived. This was the empire the Golden Child had built. My heart broke all over again just looking at the door. I climbed the 4 flights of stairs. They were dark, and they smelled of cold and damp, and I thought of my brother climbing them every night after 12 hours of labor, and every morning before dawn. At the top, there was one thin door. My hand shook so hard I could barely knock. And when the door finally opened, I did not recognize the man in front of me. The golden boy of my childhood, tall, laughing, unbreakable, was gone. In his place stood a thin, gray, stooped stranger with deep lines carved into his face and hands that would not fully open. Only the eyes were the same. My brother's gentle, patient eyes, going wide now with shock and fear at the sight of me. "Neka," he breathed. No, you should not be here. How did you—" And then his eyes fell to the wooden box in my arms, and the color left his face. He understood. He knew what I knew. 20 years of a secret so carefully kept, undone in a single moment on a freezing landing. He tried to step back, to close the door, to protect me one last time from the truth of what he had become. But I put my hand on that door, and I would not let it close. "You are done hiding from me," I said, and my voice broke on every word. "I know, Chidi. I know everything. I read all of it, and I am not leaving." And that is when my brother, who had not allowed himself to break in 20 years, who had swallowed a lie, buried a father from afar, ruined his body and his name, all without one word of complaint, finally broke. He slid down against the doorframe, and he put his face in those ruined hands, and he wept like a child. "I could not come home, Neka," he sobbed. "I wanted to. Every single day I wanted to. But if I came home, the truth would come out, and Papa's name, I couldn't undo it. I promised him." "I know," I said, sinking down and holding my brother as he shook. "I know now, and you are done carrying it alone. I am here. I am finally here." We sat on the floor of that tiny, freezing room for hours, my brother and I, holding on to 20 lost years. He told me everything at last. The fevers, the hunger, the nights he nearly gave up. And I told him about Papa, how he waited at that door every single evening, how he never once let a soul speak against his son, how he died still defending the boy the whole world had condemned. And when I told Chidi that our father had known, all along, that Papa had understood every sacrifice and had loved him more fiercely for it, something in my brother's face eased for the first time in decades. "Then it was worth it," he whispered. "If Papa knew, if Papa understood, then all of it was worth it." We talked until the gray window went black, and then gray again with a new dawn. I made him eat, really eat, a hot meal, the first I had ever cooked for my big brother instead of the other way around, and I watched those ruined hands shake around the bowl. He kept apologizing. This man who owed the world nothing, and to whom the world owed everything, kept apologizing. For the state of the room, for the cold, for not being the brother I remembered. "Stop!" I finally said, closing both my hands around his. "You do not get to apologize to me. Not you. Not ever again." And my brother looked at me the way a man looks when he hears, after 20 years, a language he had forced himself to forget. I did not leave that country without my brother. I did not care how sick he was, or how afraid he was of the truth coming out. "Papa is gone," I told him gently. "There is no one left to protect from the shame now. And the debt, Chidi, you finished paying that debt years ago. Your suffering is over. It is finished. You are coming home." He was frightened, like a man who had worn a heavy coat so long he had forgotten how to take it off, forgotten that his own back could be straight. But when I packed his one small bag and folded Papa's letters back into their box, my brother let me take his ruined hand and lead him down those 4 dark flights, out of the cold and toward home. For the first time in 20 years, Chidi was going back. The village did not know what to do when the disgraced first son came walking back down that red road, thin, gray, leaning on his sister's arm. The whispers started at once, sharp as knives. "The gambler! The one who ruined Okonkwo! How dare he show his face now that the old man is safely in the ground?" I heard every word, and this time I did not stay silent. This time I stopped in the middle of the compound and I called the whole village together, every elder, every gossip, every face that had condemned him, and I opened the wooden box, and I told them the truth, all of it. I told them about the partner who betrayed our father, the debt that was never Chidi's, the lie he swallowed in that very compound to save Papa's name, the 20 years of freezing labor. I held up the receipts, one after another, so they could see. Papa's hospital bills, my school fees, every naira sent home in secret under a false name by the man they had spat at for 2 decades. "This man," I said, my voice breaking, "did not ruin our father. This man saved our father's name with his own. He did not run from us. He carried every one of us in the dark for 20 years, and he let us hate him for it so that we would never once feel the weight." An old woman near the front, the same one who had spat on the ground the day Chidi left 20 years before, began to weep. She had lost her own son to the city and never understood why he stopped writing. And I think in that moment she was crying for every child a village had ever been too quick to condemn. And then, the oldest elder among us, a man whose word had helped bury my brother's name 2 decades ago, lowered himself down onto his knees in the dust, in front of the entire village, a thing no living person had ever seen him do. And he said, in a cracked voice that carried all the way to the back of the crowd, "We have wronged a great man. Forgive us. Forgive an old fool who read shame where there was only love." The compound went utterly silent. I watched 20 years of contempt drain out of face after face and turn into shame. "You called him a disgrace," I said. "I called him a disgrace. We were not fit to touch his feet." And then, one by one, the same elders who had condemned my brother 2 decades before walked slowly up to him and took his ruined hands in theirs and begged his forgiveness in front of everyone. And my brother, of course, forgave every single one of them, with tears running down his lined face. Because that is who he had always been. We had simply never bothered to see it. But there was one place my brother needed to go more than any other. I took his arm and I walked him, very slowly, to the quiet place beneath the old Iroko tree where we had buried our father. Chidi had not been allowed to come to the funeral. He had knelt on a cold floor an ocean away while his father went into the ground. Now, at last, he stood before Papa's grave, the homecoming that 20 years of sacrifice had denied him. He could not speak. He just stood there, this broken, gentle man, looking at the carved name of the father he had given his whole life to protect and had never once been allowed to hold again. And then I gave him the last thing in the box. The old lawyer had told me about it. A letter, sealed in our father's own hand, written in his final months, addressed to Chidi. Papa had known he might never see his son again, so he had written him a goodbye and left instructions that it reach him only after death. I placed it in my brother's trembling hands, there at the graveside, and I stepped back so that a father and a son could finally have the conversation the world had stolen from them for 20 years. Chidi broke the seal with shaking fingers, and as he began to read our father's words, this man who had held himself together for 2 decades finally, completely, fell apart. I do not know everything Papa wrote, but my brother let me read the last lines, and I will carry them in my heart until the day I die. "My son," Papa wrote, "the whole world thinks you brought me shame, but I go to my grave the proudest father who ever lived. You gave me your name so that I could keep mine, and no king in history ever gave his father a greater gift. Do not grieve for the years you lost with me. I felt you in every roof that did not leak, in every medicine that eased my pain, in every single day my family slept safe. You were never away from me, Chidi. You were holding me the whole time. Come home now, rest. You have carried us long enough. Your loving Papa." My brother pressed that letter to his heart, and he sank to his knees, and he wept into the earth of our father's grave. And I knelt down and held him, and for the first time in 20 years, his weeping was not the weeping of a man carrying an unbearable weight alone. It was the weeping of a man who had, at last, been seen, been known, been thanked. Papa had known. Papa had always known. And in the end, that was the only thing my brother had ever truly wanted. Not our praise, not our money, not even our love. Just to know that the father he had sacrificed everything for had understood and had been proud. My brother came home to stay. He was ill, and the years had taken much that would never come back. But in the months that followed, something returned to his eyes, a lightness, as if he had finally set down a load he had carried so long that he had forgotten his own spine could straighten. My children, who once believed their uncle was a criminal, now climb into his lap and beg him for stories. I told them the truth about him, every word of it, and I made them learn it by heart. Because I want them to know what real love looks like. Not the love that announces itself, the love that carries you in silence, asks for nothing, and lets you never even learn its name. We visit Papa together now, my brother and I, and every single time, Chidi kneels at the graveside and says the same 3 words. "I'm home, Papa. I finally came home. I spent 20 years hating the best man I have ever known. I will spend the rest of my life trying to become someone worthy of having been his sister. And if there is one thing my brother's life has burned into me, it is this. Be very, very careful before you decide that someone does not love you. Sometimes, the person who seems the coldest, the most absent, the most ungrateful, is the one who is loving you the hardest, from a place you cannot see, at a cost you could never imagine." So let me ask you what I ask myself every day. Was my brother right to sacrifice everything in silence, to let the people he loved hate him rather than let them carry the truth? Or should he have told us and let us share the weight together? I still do not know. And one more question, the one that keeps me awake at night. Who in your own life have you already decided is cold or selfish or ungrateful, without ever once knowing what they might be carrying for you in the dark? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched you, go, right now, and call the person you have misjudged. Do it before a stranger has to bring you a box. Thank you for staying with me all the way home.